Okay, we are back. We're going to do some more ELA right now. And in fact, we are going to do some more poetry, which is my favorite unit for many, 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 many reasons. Let's have a look today at a poem. Let's read through it a handful of times. Let's have a look at its words. Let's have a look at the poetic devices that are within it. Let's look at imagery. Let's look at figurative language. Let's look at all this stuff. And we are going to try to make sense of this poem together. Okay? Because I don't really understand it and I need your help. So let's have a look. This is a poem that I give you in your poetry booklet. You should have this. So let's have a look at what we're looking at here. First of all, not all poems are going to come with images, but this one does. And I think that that's very helpful. So I can see books. I'm thinking that we're probably going to be reading a poem about books or reading or something like this. If we look at the bottom here too, this is very useful. We've got some vocabulary words. Frigate, which is a medium-sized warship with sails. Okay. Coursers, a graceful, swift horse or runner. Nice. That makes sense. Because in French, we say une course, and that means like a race, a running race, right? So coursers, that actually makes a lot of sense. Okay. So let's have a look. We're going to read through. You can never, ever, ever start analyzing a poem until you've read the whole thing, first and foremost. And then maybe even we'll read it twice. And then we'll really start breaking it down for the language. So, there is no frigate like a book to take us lands away, nor any coursers like a page of prancing poetry. This traverse may the poorest take, without oppressive toll. How frugal is the chariot that bears the human soul. That's nice. That's really nice. Let's read it again. Notice that we've got ourselves one full stanza. How many verses per stanza? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 verses in this stanza here. And I believe there's a bit of rhyming going on. This time when I read it, pay attention to what the rhyming scheme is. There is no frigate like a book to take us lands away, nor any coursers like a page of prancing poetry. That's about a half rhyme. This traverse may the poorest take, without oppressive toll. How frugal is the chariot that bears the human soul. So it looks to me like we've got an A, B, C, B, A, B, C, B rhyming format here because we've got away and poetry that kind of rhyme. It's about a half rhyme. And then in the second half here, we've got toll and soul, but take and chariot and book and page do not rhyme. Okay, we got ourselves a poem. Now ask yourself, do you understand it? Let's see. There is no frigate like a book. No, pardon me. I keep pronouncing that wrong. There is no frigate like a book to take us lands away, nor any coursers like a page of prancing poetry. This traverse may the poorest take, without oppressive toll. How frugal is the chariot that bears the human soul. A couple other hints that are present here that I think we should look at before we move on to finally analyzing each and every word. I see at the end we've got an exclamation mark, right? So whatever is stated here at the end is obviously stated in an exclamatory way and with a bit of excitement behind it. And I also see some words here that, you know what, honestly, they're pretty advanced words. I don't recognize some of these words. Traverse, what's that all about? Maybe we can do a little bit of analyzing to find out what that means. Thankfully, frigate and coursers are already defined below. And I see here as well, poorest, toll. Okay, I get the impression that we're talking a little bit about money here too. Frugal, right? To be frugal means to save one's money, right? To spend non-frivolously. So perhaps we might be talking about money as well. That's confusing. We're talking about books. We're talking about reading. We're talking about ships and horses and money all in the same place. Well, that's the beauty of poetry, my friends. You can bring all of those things together to create one very dramatic image. So we're going to go over to my Word document here because this is the only way that I can highlight and underline and do all sorts of crazy stuff with you. So I've literally just copy pasted the poem right here. Here it is in its 8 verses format. Now here we have at the bottom, I wrote down the different things that we're going to be looking for here because I believe we have a little bit of each and every one. Imagery, of course, because we're creating images with all this language without question. If you're not sure what imagery is, go and have a look at my video on imagery, okay? Then come back here because I'll miss you. Simile, alliteration, metaphor, and some figurative language, okay? Don't forget, figurative. What does figurative mean? Figurative is kind of like the opposite of literal. If I say, this assignment is going to kill me, I am not speaking literally, of course. I'm speaking figuratively, right? I'm using figurative language because the assignment isn't a sheet of paper that actually gave me a serious paper cut across the throat and now I'm bleeding out from the throat and I'm going to fall and die. It's a nice image, huh? So that would be the literal interpretation of that statement. But figuratively, what I mean is that it is so oppressive of an assignment that it's going to bring me to death, right? Which is not true. It's just figurative language that's trying to divulge a deeper meaning. So we're going to have a look for that. We're going to have a look for all these things as well. These, my friends, are poetic devices. If you do not know what those poetic devices are, I recommend you go and watch the video on poetic devices as well. Okay, let's go. Starting from the top. I need some more coffee. Whoops. No, I don't want to save yet. Got it. Thanks. There is no frigate like a book. Boom. I see a poetic device there. Do you? There is no frigate like a book. Well, that word right there, I normally have to look out for that word, like or as, because that usually indicates that we're doing some kind of a comparison, n'est-ce pas? So that comparison right here is between frigate, pardon me, and book. And if you look at the rest of the sentence, we are saying that there is no frigate like a book. So a book makes a better frigate than a frigate itself. Now, I forget what a frigate is, so let's go have a look really quickly. You can go back and forth, of course. It is a medium-sized warship with sails. Okay. So it is a boat with sails, meaning that it goes on long voyages, right? And it goes on long voyages in a vast open sea. So already we are comparing a book to a frigate, to this boat that goes on a long voyage in the sea. And already there is some meaning there, right? We've got a bit of imagery going on. A book is like the boat with which you go voyaging through the sea in the wide open air to go explore, right? So already I think I'm picking up on what this poet is laying down. Next, to take us lands away. Okay, so that kind of confirms what we already saw in the first section, right? And of course, to take us lands away, I would certainly say that that is... Sorry, my cat is doing strange things in the background. To take us lands away, I would say that that is obviously figurative, right? That's some figurative language right there, because we're not saying that a book is literally going to take you lands away, right? If you look above, we've got a simile just saying that it is that a frigate is like a book. It isn't officially a book, right? It's like a book in the sense that it will take you lands away in a figurative way. Okay, so far so good. And so far I agree with the author as well, or with the poet, pardon me. Nor any coursers, and we already had a look at what that means. Let's go back just to be sure. Ah, yes, nor any coursers. That means a graceful, swift horse or runner. So again, we're back in that language regarding voyaging, going far, going great distances, out in the wide open, right? Exploring, that kind of stuff. So yet again, we have another comparison in the same format, right? There is no frigate like a book. There is no courser like a page. So, courser. Our like here implies that we're dealing with a simile, comparing both courser and page. And there we go. So in the same way that a frigate is being compared to a book, giving meaning about going off to distant places, the courser is also being compared to a page, right? So each page of every book is in and of itself like a vast, swift, monstrous horse taking us off lands away again and again in a figurative sense, right? So I think I'm understanding what this poet is trying to say. This poet is trying to say that books have the power to take you places that you don't physically have to go, right? So I love this next line here. Nor any courses like a page of prancing poetry. You can hear my mic popping. Why is that happening? Oh, because there's a lot of P's. Now, what does that mean when there's a lot of one letter? My friends, we call that... Anybody? Felix? What do we call that? Did you say alliteration? Oh no, he said meow. But he's right. It is alliteration. P, P, and P. We've got that p, p, p sound the whole way through. That is alliteration. That is the repetition of a consonant sound. What does that really do? Well, it brings the focus of the reader or the listener into that part, right? It really, really calls on your attention. This is why you might have, like, for instance, when you hear somebody doing a tongue twister, right? Peter Pecker, pick up, I can't remember how that goes. Peter Pepper, picked whatever. Okay, I already can't do it. But when you hear somebody saying that, it's very, very exciting, right? It's a very spicy thing to listen to because it's got all of those repeated sounds. And same story here. Page of prancing poetry that calls your attention directly there. So that's the alliteration. Let's have a look at the next line. This traverse may the poorest take without oppressive toll. Okay, so first of all, we need to understand what a traverse is. And I'm not quite sure, so let's think about the word. Do I know any words in French that are like that? Actually, I do. I know a verb. Put an R at the end, and you've got traverser, which means to, well, traverse in English, but it means to go somewhere, right? To go from one place to another, to traverse the field or to traverse the entire country. That's what that means. So again, we're going back into the frame of mind of traveling, right? Taking us lands away, going far away, going off in the distance, right? We want to traverse the full distance. So this traverse may the poorest take. Okay, so now this is where I think we're starting to talk about money, right? The poorest person will not have money, but this traverse may the poorest take without a press of toll. So this word here, toll, you may have heard of a toll booth before. That's a booth that as you drive up to it, you have to put some money in so you can go through, right? It's like the price, the cost of going someplace, right? So this traverse may the poorest take without oppressive toll. So basically the poet is telling us, you do not need to spend any money to take this long voyage, right? No matter how poor you are, you can still do this trip, this long discovering, exploring voyage without having to spend a dime. I mean, I would perhaps disagree just a little bit because you do have to buy the book. I suppose you could borrow it from a library, but in general, the idea is without spending thousands and thousands of dollars, you can go lands away, right? You can prance off on your courser. You can take to the sea in your frigate, for instance. So that's a really, really interesting message and a really good point. How frugal is the chariot that bears the human soul. Now I think we're starting to make a lot more sense of this poem. And before I move on, I want to identify one more thing here. 1, 2, 3. What do we call that? We call that alliteration again, right? This traverse may the poorest take without a press of toll, right? So P, P, and P, T, T, and T. Very, very even, right? 3 letters of one type, 3 letters of another type, right there in the middle of the poem. I think it's because there's a message being put through, especially most specifically in the center of the poem, right? Where it's like, this is what I'm getting at. This is what I'm trying to say. And this alliteration brings your attention in for that. And then he hits you with the final blow, this final section that really puts the point across. And we even finish with an exclamation mark. So let's look a little bit deeper. If we are saying that this section is about money, right? Because frugal, that's a money term. Poor, that's a money term. Toll, that's a money term, right? And even oppress, you may not know what oppress means, but oppress means like to push you down or to stop you or to hold you back, right? So if I was too poor to pay for a trip, I would be under the oppress of a toll, right? There's a cost there that I just simply can't pay. And then finally, how frugal. I already told you that the word frugal means someone who is good with their money. Spending frugally means that you're spending only what you have to, and you are saving the rest, and you're being very cautious, and you're not overspending, right? So how frugal is the chariot? Now here we have another comparison. What are we comparing the chariot to? Oh, monsieur, I don't see another word here. There's no comparison. There's no like, there's no as. Well, just because there's no like or as doesn't mean we're not making a comparison. A simile needs to have a like and an as, a like or an as. Metaphor, however, does not. You can say, she is a flower, and that would be a metaphor, comparing the she, the person you're talking to, and the flower. But when we look back above, I think we're referring to, again, the books and the pages. Because how frugal is the chariot, right? That's the thing that you ride in, right? So your courser might be bringing you along in a chariot. Or you might even say that a boat out on the water is similar to a chariot because you're within it, you're using it for travel, right? So I think this chariot here is a metaphor referring to the book and the pages and the stories that are being referenced above. So how frugal is the chariot, right? How cheap of a thing that bears a human soul, right? Now that's when it becomes fully clear. Again, in a figurative sense, using figurative language, when you talk about someone's soul, you're talking about the most special part of them, right? Their character, their mind, their spirit, essentially, right? So essentially what our author is telling us, or what our poet is telling us here, is that this is the kind of voyage that your body can't take, right? This is the kind of trip, this is the kind of exploration that you don't need a body for. All you need to do is read the book, right? Read a story. Let the story take you away to lands far and far away. It's a very cheap voyage because all you need is yourself, your book, and a bit of peace of mind. And this chariot will carry your soul to that new place. That's essentially what we're getting at. And we did that by using imagery, right? Because think of all the images created here. You're picturing prancing poetry, right? Like horses running off through open fields. You're picturing a battleship out at sea with wind in its sails, carrying it along the waves, right? You are picturing the poorest of people and trying to have these experiences, and they can have them through the beauty of storytelling in the form of books. And now you're also picturing a chariot bearing a human soul. I think the imagery in this poem is exceptional, right? It really does a great job of pointing out how important books and stories are to the poet, but not only that, just how deep their passion goes for them. Simile, we had a handful here. We had the frigate like a book. We had the coursers like a page. For alliteration, we had pa and ta. For metaphor, we were comparing the chariot to the to the books and to the stories. And then for the figurative language, we say things like to take us lands away, for instance, right? Where we're not physically actually going lands away. It's our soul that is going on this voyage. So there you have it. That is the poem. That one does not actually have a title. So the poem kind of speaks for itself. No title. And from the particular book that I got it from, no author is written either. So I think earlier I said he, him, right? I don't even know, actually, in fact. It may not be a he or him. It may be a she or her. I think that's part of the mystery of the poem. I think it just is a poem that speaks so generally to something that a lot of people feel, that we all feel to a certain extent, that there is no need for a title. There almost is no need to include the author's name either, the poet's name, pardon me. It's just a good message that I think we can all get behind. And in fact, I want to get this engraved in wood or something and put up on the wall in my classroom, because this is how I feel about storytelling as well, right? How many times have you, even above and beyond a book, how many times have you watched a movie and literally felt like you're being transported lands away through what you're seeing? How many times have you maybe read a comic book where you've been, right, transported? A story, even a poem can transport you somewhere, right? And it's not a physical transportation, right? You are not physically going on this adventure, but it's like your soul has gone on this adventure, right? And what did it cost you? In most cases, nothing. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the poem. I hope you feel comfortable with analyzing a poem in the same way that I did. We're going to do a lot more of that, so stay tuned. Have a great day.